Survivors from the battle return to Reach. John confronts Dr. Halsey and the lies of his past. This is the Campfire Gaming Podcast reviews Halo the TV series, Episode 6, Solace. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Campfire Gaming Podcast. My name is Rich, and I will be your host for this week's review of Halo the TV series, Episode 6, Solace. With me, as always, we have Matt. How's it going, Matt?
Good. Excited to talk Halo.
Oh, yes. And then as the returning character, everyone's fan favorite, is Heather. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, so we got a lot of Halo to talk about. Unfortunately, this episode was not nearly as exciting as the last one, at least in my general opinion, so we're just going to get that out of the way. But before we get that, dive into it, just going to warn you that there are spoilers ahead. Just like every episode, we're going to be covering lots of details about this episode, giving our thoughts and opinions about the episode. And we will be covering potential spoilers, and if you do not want any spoilers, hit pause now and come back in a couple of days when you do finish the episode. Otherwise, stick around and visit our website, campfiregamingpodcast.com. There you will find links to our Twitter at CampGamePod, and you can join us on Discord, where you can share all your thoughts and opinions about Halo the TV series, as well as any other games that you might like. We are primarily a gaming and game news podcast, but we have chosen to cover this Halo TV series because Matt and I love Halo, so of course we're going to be watching this, right?
Do we still love Halo?
A lot of people would say no. A lot of our listeners would probably say no, but I say yes.
We should do a book club of like Halo 1, 2, or 3, and then the community will realize we love Halo.
Yes, yeah. If we actually just play some of like the good Halo content, we'll have lots of good things to say about it.
Yep.
The good Halo content.
So let's just dive right in. Yeah, so like I said earlier in this, just a little bit ago, a lot less action-packed than the previous one. I believe all of our ratings were fairly decent for the last episode. Heather, we never got yours for episode 5, but I would imagine it would probably be in the same realm as where we were, something above 5.
Right.
Yeah. And this episode basically just kicks off pretty much immediately after the battle, right? It was just, you get Master Chief, and he's thinking about a lot of stuff that was going down, and he kind of is given like that. What do you call it, Matt? Like the 1,000-yard stare or something like that?
Yep, 1,000-yard stare. Yeah, he was just kind of, I mean, all the craziness that happened between Kai and then obviously his rage-filled, I don't know what you would call it, his little dive and then the Xbox off moment with Cortana. So he was zoned out. But
right. So yeah, this is another very like a bit of an exposition heavy episode. Well, not even there was no exposition in this one. What it was mostly, it was just drama. It was a very drama filled episode. It was a lot of like pseudo reveals. You had an entire interrogation scene where I think it was who was it? It was there was like a UNSC official who was interrogating Dr. Halsey, and her sort of the information about her is starting to get out there, and you had goofy Matrix integration, like two-way glass. Like what are your guys' thoughts on that? I'm kind of curious.
Can I jump in here real quick, because you've said it now twice how this wasn't as bombastic and great as last episode. I think initially, I would say this is potentially one of the best episodes so far. And because of one thing, we got about a half a second, 2 seconds of Quan in here. The entire episode was devoid of her storyline, which was fantastic. So,
right. That's true, actually.
Best part of the episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the people who are watching the Halo TV series in general probably are unanimously thanking the showrunners for not including Quan in this episode. Granted, I don't know. I thought that this episode was pretty lackluster, but
It was, but we had to make that call out because any episode with as little of her as possible in her storyline is a good thing, in my opinion. And from what I read online, everybody shares the same opinion, like everywhere. I've looked at like Twitters for Halo TV series, Instagram, Reddit, articles, and everybody's just like, this
the Quan
story
Haas,
needs to go.
the Quan
It's
Haas
not
stuff is
good.
really dumb. Yep. And it really doesn't serve much of a purpose, and we kind of beat that into the ground with like every review of this TV series that we've done so far, is that like all the stuff relating to Quan kind of just sucks the air out of the room. So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise to not see Quan in an entire episode.
Yep.
But I mean, on the flip side of that, we got, like I was saying earlier, a lot of drama. Yeah, you have, Chief sits in that interrogation room and he's talking to Halsey, kind of just asking her a bunch of questions about all the, the stuff that went down with him getting kidnapped and the Flash clones. And
yeah, the big kind of plot to me, the big thing this episode was continuing on, or Chief continuing on his rage-filled journey as a character, and his growing hatred for Halsey because he's finding more and more and more of the Spartan program, and then just kind of turning on her. We saw almost last episode and this episode, which was kind of, it wasn't a really Chief thing to do, but it was probably one of the kind of more interesting things he's done as a character. Is the scene we got where he trapped Halsey in her lab that apparently didn't. He goes on this big exposition dump of some creator of the starship that didn't put in fail safes or something like that, right? So he starts turning on some sort of gas that would really just kill her,
like
and there's
radiation.
It's radiation.
Yeah, some radiation, something, and this whole time, obviously Halsey's kind of, let me out, and Chief is talking to Cortana this whole time, and basically, again, probably the best we've like kind of the more thought out tactical thing he's ever done so far in the series is the whole reason for doing this was to see Cortana's limits, because the whole time he's just talking to her and saying, like, basically, you can stop this, take me over, you can just take my brain over and make me, turn off whatever, or stop me from what I'm doing, or let Halsey out. And she never does. So we kind of see that Cortana really doesn't, at least right now, have full control over him, although I feel Halsey hinted at it at one of the earlier episodes that at some point they could kind of turn her up to 100% and control John. But yeah, I mean, what did you guys think of the scene? Again, to me, that was probably the most interesting scene out of the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting, but I thought it was just like, and this is more or less, I think, just a gripe with the Silver Timeline Master Chief in general, is that like there's really just a bit, like, there really is a schism between what you have to expect as a Halo fan, someone who's used to playing the games and kind of seeing Master Chief and what his personality is like, versus what you get in the show. And it's really, really hard to try and separate those two. Because the entire time, like, yeah, like, if you were to just cut the Halo stuff out of this and, like, let's pretend like that wasn't Master Chief doing that, then yes, I would agree that is kind of, it's a very interesting concept. The problem that I have, though, is that, in my mind, Master Chief is really supposed to be a character that is supposed to be loyal until death, kind of a thing. Like, that is his, like, essentially his mantra, is that it's loyalty, duty. Like, that is his go-to, that is his North Star, is that's those principles right there. So when he's going and basically ready to commit murder on, the person that has essentially raised him, someone that all of the Spartans pretty much respect, I believe, at least the older ones.
Yeah, I mean, there's two that aren't respecting her so much in the show, but yeah, I mean, in
like the canon,
the book lore, there was I think the Spartans that survived the augmentation but didn't take, like, they didn't successfully get everything, kind of like Soren, right? He's kind of messed up in the books, right? They kind of have them and a couple other Spartans kind of have this thing, like, for Halsey, kind of knowing that she was shady and kind of what they did to him, but it was never on a level like this, right? In the show's portraying.
Yeah, and so it makes it so hard for me to buy into the fact that this is Master Chief. You know, like I can't. It makes it so hard for me to really get immersed in this as a Halo series when you have somebody who's you know trying to argue that it's morally wrong for her to have kidnapped Master Chief. So the only way to right that to right that wrong is by murdering her. I guess like
Yeah, I
that's
don't
just
remember Master Chief being vindictive.
yeah. He's not. He's not really a vindictive person unless it's toward the Covenant.
Yeah.
But it's
No,
like
and it's to your point. Yeah, it's really hard for me to kind of swallow this pill because pretty much everything we've seen of Chief in this episode is not the Chief in the game. Like literally, it's like the complete opposite. I mean,
right.
down to we've mentioned this before is like he like Cortana and Chief are supposed to be like best friends and teamwork and like but here it's just kind of they're kind of fighting each other all the time. Same thing with as we're talking with Halsey is like the Spartans looked up to her as a mother and treated her as such. And in here it's just like I think weirdly enough, as was stated in the Fall of Reach book, that this would be a dumb idea to keep all this stuff from them, and we're seeing the repercussions of doing it. Right? In a way, we're seeing the alternate, I guess, alternate universe, alternate timeline of what would happen if Halsey and everybody in charge of the Spartan program didn't tell the kids, and it's just awful.
Right, but at the end of the day, it kind of just makes me think like, what difference does it make? What difference does it make if they tell them that they were kidnapped versus if they were, came from like an adoption place? Like of all the really messed up things that Halsey did to them as kids and we got glimpses of that even in the show where they talked about
Yep.
how they had their pets and then, when they lost a challenge or something like that, they had to kill their own pets. And then when they finally won all the challenges, they still had to kill their own pets. Like we know that they did really messed up things to them, including kill some of them. So why is it that this revelation is what really pushes them over the line? Like it almost seems like it should be par for the course.
Lazy writing, like we've said before, right? We need this conflict.
Yeah,
it makes me kind of wonder why they chose Master Chief, because he's clearly seems unstable without that pellet. Like,
yeah,
actually unstable
in
a mental health way.
And you see that in this episode.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the more he goes without the pellet, the more I'm actually honestly worried about his mental health more than anything else. And like, it feels so weird saying that about Master Chief.
Right.
Like I'll give it to you. Like, it's kind of badass when you go, oh, I just want to see with your limits of your AI, you're not safe. Like, yeah, you're like, damn, that's some fighting words, right? But at the end of the day, like you guys mentioned, it's still Master Chief, and that is quite literally his mother after his mom, or after he gets taken from his mom. Like, even in this show, they show that Keyes and Halsey ended up adopting him before, like, as officially adopting him and then taking him to the program. Because that's where like, I think the last week, or well, I guess the episode I wasn't here for, I think that's in there when they're or maybe a couple episodes ago, they're like showing like him playing on a rope and like holding someone up by their ankle or whatever as they're about to fall.
Yeah.
So
then
like,
the other thing,
he's
sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, she's quite literally his mother, and he's that vindictive. Like, I'm so confused.
Yeah, like the biggest thing that I gotta think logically is they gotta stop letting him touch the Forerunner artifact because it's clearly making him unstable.
Yeah.
Like, even with the pellet in, it was making him make rash decisions. It was making him emotional. It was making him aggressive. It was changing him as a person by just touching those Forerunner artifacts.
Yeah. Right.
And the crazy thing too, to me, again, it's also they must need more military advisors or something on this show too, because if you see somebody starting to go this crazy, who cares if he's the Master Chief? You're not like he's just walking around like he still owns the place. He's walking in to chat with Maquis. He's just walking in to see other Spartans. He's walking in on interrogations. Nobody's watching over him, and he's like literally losing it.
Yeah,
and
he's straight up being evil. You're right.
And the crazy thing too is I think this is done for the like us watching the show, but I'm not so sure that everybody else sees Cortana when he's talking to her. So to me, and there are times where she doesn't actually show herself in the scene too when she's talking to him, but it's like if I saw this, Chief's acting weird. He went AWOL in the first episode, remember? So he's acting all weird and he's walking down hallways talking to himself. I'm sure not everybody knows that he has a AI in his head, right? So like to me it's just like, how is this guy not in some psych ward, right? How is this guy not allowed to go into these different areas?
How does he not have like the MPs following him around since he went AWOL? Like,
Yeah.
in the actual military, if you go AWOL, you can be thrown in things like,
Mhm.
since this is the Navy, you can be thrown in the brig for a long time. You can get dishonorably discharged for stuff like that. You can you can go to jail for stuff like that. Like, I mean, because that's like, if I understand correctly, that's basically what the brig is it's like jail for Navy, from what I understand. But like, there's so many repercussions just for going AWOL. Let's not like, now let's talk about his homicidal tendencies, his clearly like unstable like self. Like, everybody in the episode was like, Chief, you don't look good, you need to go see a doctor. And he's like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm not going to. And like, I don't know how they don't just literally take him to the doctor.
Yeah.
Like, he's military at the end of the day. Like, they can make him do what he wants, whatever they want him to do.
And
I think
in that same regard, that's supposed to be Master Chief's character. At least in my mind, that's supposed to be Master Chief's character, is that he is very obedient. And it's not until like the Halo 4 where he actually starts being disobedient because he's in a conflict with what he believes duty is.
Yeah.
What the duty or what the job should be that needs to be done. But now this is all personal to him. Like, he's just acting out of personal interest, and that's, to me, antithetical. It's not what Master Chief's character is. He's supposed to be selfless. Like, that is his character, is that he is a selfless soldier. That's what he was, bred out to be, is a selfless soldier.
Mm-hmm. I think we got an explanation to all this, and I'll try to channel my inner Vanek, and it was Vanek who said it. All this is, Chief is getting away with all this because he's the Master Chief.
Yeah, he's the Master Chief.
He's the Master Chief. Yeah. But no, again, to me, that kind of just, a lot of this just goes back to that kind of just lazy and kind of bad writing, right? Nobody thinks through these consequences, like, he's going crazy. What is everybody else, what's going to happen to him? What is everybody else think
walks
of him?
around him and they're just like, yeah, everything's totally cool.
What's up, Chief?
Yeah, what's
They talk about how he's like a super soldier, because that's what we know Spartans to be, and that he's like the greatest asset, but they're not willing to invest in their greatest asset's mental and physical well-being.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So we get a lot of that information during that interrogation scene. She breaks down the Spartan program, her being Dr. Halsey. And while this is all happening, this is where you get the other point of major drama that they're kind of forcing into the TV series, is that you have Miranda Keyes entering the chat. So you have Captain Keyes and Parangoski hooking themselves up to the Matrix two-way glass. So it's like they put little diodes on their foreheads and lay back in some comfy chairs. And next thing you know, they're in the interrogation room where some dude is interrogating Dr. Halsey about the Spartan program.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was just such the weirdest thing. It was just so odd is what it was. It was odd.
I think from a high level idea, I actually think it's kind of pretty cool, right? Instead of having two-way glass, you could literally, go into the world, the Matrix, and just stand in the room, because, Halsey and the UNSC interrogator and then Chief, those were the three humans actually physically in the room. They couldn't see all this stuff. So the idea, the crazy tech behind it is pretty cool. But the way it was shot and the way it was acted, it was kind of a little cringy, especially when, Parangoski and Keyes were sitting in the room just like chatting, and then like Miranda, walked down the hallway somewhere, walked right in this room, just put it right on. And I was like, again, that's Miranda's character. She's getting access to all this stuff. And I think we got a little bit of a hint this episode as, where it's from, but previous episodes, it's like, how does she just privy to all this information as a scientist, right? But in
Mhm.
this one, I felt you got little hints that Parangosky's starting to pull a little bit of the strings to, and we see it in the episode, kind of take more power and things away from Halsey and give it more to Miranda.
Right.
But I think this is the only time this episode that we kind of get that explanation of why Miranda gets access to all this. But where previous, it was just like she just shows up, her dad tells her everything, whatever. It's yeah. But
Yeah, and I think that, but that's what I thought. Yeah, was really really odd is that she just kind of shows up, and Parangosky and Captain Keyes both just kind of look at her and be like, but they don't do anything about it. But it's like clearly they can take the diodes off because at some point I think Captain Keyes or somebody was like getting ready to take his off and leave the room or something, and then he decides that he's not going to do it because he's they're talking about something interesting, and then like yeah, it's like, well, Miranda enters. He doesn't like get up and like try and like is she in the room with them? He could just take her diodes off and be like, yeah,
yeah,
you're not allowed to see this. I'm sorry. Like this isn't for you. And why does she just like decide to, oh yeah, I'm just gonna just insert myself into this whatever they're doing because they look really comfy sitting in those chairs with those diodes on their face. I want to do this too.
how did she know the interrogation was going on? Right.
Exactly. Yeah. She
Again,
just saw them in the chairs. That's all she saw.
this is where I felt the interaction or the kind of body language there was when Miranda entered the chat, and Keyes just kind of looked over at Parangosky. Sorry, by the way, Keyes to me is Captain Keyes. I should probably explain that since there's also Miranda Keyes in the seas. Miranda's Miranda. But anyways, the way Keyes kind of looks over at Parangosky and Parangosky just kind of shrugs it off, again, makes me think that, and again, we see it more in the episode, that she's fine with Miranda showing up and probably gave the information to Miranda to come hang out and learn more, become a accomplice in all this crazy Spartan program crap.
Right. And I mean, like, and we see that more in the episode too. She just straight up gives her the Spartan program.
Yeah.
Because they basically shit can Dr. Halsey and they have her pack up her things in her apartment or whatever. And then, yeah, they basically give her Cortana. They give her, the Spartan program, all that sort of stuff. But Cortana is still loyal to Dr. Halsey. So, I mean, that just kind of undoes itself. And now they're still kind of at, you have Miranda going to visit Dr. Halsey, and they kind of have like this little moment, but then like you realize, yeah, Dr. Halsey's just using her for information. Like she really is like the shittiest mom on the planet, kind of a thing.
They are going like all out
soap opera
on making Halsey this awful person and just this villain. She's honestly the biggest villain in the show. The Covenant aren't, it's
there's Covenant in the show?
What? Wait, really?
Yeah.
I thought they were fighting like chicken people or something this last episode.
Yeah.
Krogans.
Yeah, Krogans. Yeah. No, I mean, we've said it before. The all the fighting seems to be more internal with the UNSC and the fighting in the Covenant War is just an inconvenience, right? Darn that those Covenant, they're invading on our story we're trying to tell with all this crazy infighting and drama in the UNSC. I wish they would just go away. Oh, let's ship Maquis over there then. Then we don't have to spend any time with the Covenant. Perfect. That writer got a raise.
Yes. Or writer. Yeah, I think there's two. There's two writers.
No, maybe they're using
might be a third.
Maybe they're using, what is it, the Family Guy method? A bunch of manatees and balls and I don't know. Maybe.
They're doing the South Park method?
Yeah. Or South Park,
no.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
No, South Park making fun of Family Guy.
South Park making fun of Family Guy, yeah.
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 But
I get what you're saying.
But I mean, they even go as far as in this episode, as you were saying, Miranda shows up to chat with Halsey, which Halsey has, an ulterior motive with stealing. So I'm guessing we'll find out. Well, this next episode, probably in 2 episodes, but she had some contact in her eye that captured something, right? But during this, there was this weird conversation about how she didn't believe in family and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, again, to me, this is like taking it, let's turn it up to 11 and just make this person completely awful. Like in the books, there was a good relationship between, like a really good relationship between father and daughter between Miranda and Captain Keyes, right? They were like super best friends. Again, that's why Miranda kind of followed in his footsteps to become a ship captain, not a doctor like in this episode. Not
Right.
a big deal. Who cares? Whatever. They changed that in this
She
timeline. It's
wanted
no
to
big
be.
deal.
She wanted to be just like the mommy that never loved her.
Yeah, but in the books, the difference is Halsey just like, and Keyes knew this. I don't know if they had conversations. I don't know if they ever did in the books. I don't think they did. But it was just the Spartan program was her work. It was one of those where Keyes knew he would have to take care of Miranda, but it was never this like, oh, I hate mommy, and then mommy comes and says, I didn't want kids and family, and I don't believe in family.
Yeah, I don't believe in families. Okay.
Yeah, just stupid.
I don't know what makes up the rest of the UNSC, but I guess it's just robots or something.
Why'd you have a kid if you don't believe in family? I don't know. But anyways,
I don't know.
I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah. So yeah, we end up getting, she ends up getting a whole bunch of information out of Miranda so that she can have Cortana sort of like hack her way back into Halsey's control. And like I said, like this is a really just drama filled episode, and like really the last bit to really highlight, I think, because like nothing really happened in this episode. The most that we saw was that Kai is recovering from her injuries, so getting shot up, stomped, knocked over, all that stuff, and she gets a couple of burns on her arms or something like that.
We did see, I think, kind of some, again, air quotes, important things between the Chief interacting with Kai and then Kai interacting with Riz and Vanek, because once Chief is done with his interrogation, he goes to chat with Kai because Kai's the only other one without her pellet in, right?
Yep.
They have this whole thing of, oh, we hate Halsey now, and then they're like coming to a realization, oh, our parents could still be out there. I hope there's a spin-off episode or something where they all go search for their parents, but
that's gonna be the season. They're not actually gonna make it to Reach. They're gonna go visit their parents.
That should be season 2. Who cares about finding Halo? Let's go find our parents, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very important stuff.
Yeah.
It's like whatever.
But they kind of discuss how, well, one, now John is totally cool with Kai, right? Last episode we saw this whole like, well, you're not fit for duty, but now she is apparently. I don't know. She's got to get shot 50 times with plasma and, curb stomped or almost curb stomped by some elites. But they're kind of on good terms now. Where then when Kai returns to Vanek and Riz, they're kind of, they didn't ignore her, but they kind of almost ignored her, right? So again, to me, this is like, are they starting to fill up or add more to what is it? Stories and for
the drama triangle.
It's just more adding drama. Another storyline for drama here.
Yeah.
So
Silver Team doesn't like Kai. Miranda hates Halsey. Parangoski hates Halsey. Parangoski doesn't like Keyes. Keyes doesn't like the Spartans. The Spartans don't like, I don't know, the Covenant.
They must be saving for a later episode for Chief to turn on Captain Keyes, because we haven't had that blow up yet, and that's I think one of the few things left that he needs to get pissed at.
Well, I mean, they set him up for it, right? Like, he remembers that Keyes is one of the adopting parents, or at least they show him in the flashback. So conceivably, Chief remembers, right? Like they set it up,
but we didn't get that blow up yet. So hopefully, we get another scene of trapped in Keyes, and I don't know.
Yeah, maybe John Halo is going to take down the UNSC and the Covenant.
Yeah,
because fuck the establishment.
And then him, John Halo, Maquis, and Quan will rule the galaxy as the trifecta of, I don't know, haircuts, awful haircuts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
Oh, that's it. That is the rebel squad, because now all the other rebels they're gone. They were paid off. They were disposed of. Now you got your new set of rebels. 2 ex-Spartans.
Yeah.
A Quan Ha, whatever that is.
So we got all of this happening. At the meantime, we got eventually Master Chief John Halo ends up talking to Maquis as well. And they have kind of a conversation just outlining that, oh yes, they're very similar. They know how to interact with the Forerunner artifacts. They know what it does and that sort of thing. And I don't know. Like basically, what it all boils down to is that it kind of leads into a scenario in which Master Chief goes and touches the Forerunner artifact again. That's
Mm-hmm.
basically what it ends up leading into. And then in doing so, it's, Miranda kind of calls out that it's basically killing him and her,
Mm.
and or her being McKee, because she goes into like a seizure fit after, getting ready to energy sword fingernail stab somebody giving her lunch.
Can we take a minute to comment on how she pulled her energy fingernail
Where she
out?
whips it out like Wolverine, like
Yeah.
flicks
Oh
her
yeah.
wrist at it.
So much for being stealthy, right?
Yeah. And there's 2 people in the room and probably cameras, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with her in the next
And I
episode
gotta
she's
wonder,
in.
why is it only one finger? Like, why not the whole hand? Or why not
I'm
like all 5
hoping
fingers?
I'm
Like a
hoping
whole
that's
claw.
an episode 9 reveal where she just like again goes like full Wolverine, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe
Maybe she has like
that'd
an
be kind of
Ezio
cool.
blade in her wrist.
Maybe.
That'd be cool.
In her teeth.
Yeah.
She's a part vampire that way.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's like a unicorn and it comes out of her forehead. There you go.
So basically all this leads to is that, he touches the artifact again, and then that leads us to the grand reveal of this episode. And I mean, this is probably the one big highlight of the episode, is that they go into like, full on seizure / O-face mode, and then all of a sudden they're like, I just think it's silly, like their BPM, their heart rates, they align together, and then boom, all of a sudden they're on like a nice big grassy plain. And then it's, of course, revealed that they're sitting, they're just kind of standing there on the Halo ring. What it all means, who knows? Like, is it a projection? Did they actually get transported there for a brief period? Who knows? All we know is that it's a really awkward scene between him and McKee, and they're standing in this big open field, and he touches her face gently across the cheek, and she embraces it because she is now falling for the Master Chief. Maybe, I don't know, but probably.
Probably.
But yeah, and then you get the camera pans around the whole Halo, and I have my little gripe about that because they don't actually show the entire Halo, and I don't know. We had a whole conversation about that in Discord, but
Yeah. We had some fighting words with another listener.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a very underwhelming moment, especially with how much and how cool the Halo is in the games. This is definitely where somebody probably should have played the games, or at least Halo, level 2 of Halo CE. And that first moment you walk out on the rings, that's the type of moment this should have been. And here we go back, broken record, because I'm going to add this in every time a good moment comes up. This was a scene that suffered not only from probably running out of CGI budget, but also because they didn't have enough. I know, Heather, there was a subtle, and I listened to it again when I rewatched the episode. There is a subtle little Halo theme in there, but the lack of just very prominent Halo theme music during that reveal was just so underwhelming, and it was just you had a moment again, kind of when your your watchers like me, the people that like the games, kind of win me over a little bit by going, hey, look, it's Halo and that's cool. And it kind of fell flat.
Yeah, if there was ever a time to belt out Halo themes, it was at the unveiling of the Halo.
Yeah, the namesake of the show. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I
the
agree.
thing that we're there for.
And I mean, I found myself just being kind of annoyed at it because, yeah, like I was genuinely, I genuinely thought that it was cool, like how they were standing there in that big grassy plain, and it was really sunny and it looked very beautiful. Like, and in fact, for the first time, the CG didn't look absolutely terrible, and like the ring itself actually looks kind of neat. And then you can see it, like, when they show the shot of like, the horizon sort of rising in the distance, and getting that curvature of the landscape. You see it kind of pan up, and then I just kind of like got pissed off because, yeah, it pans across the entire sky and there's nothing but blue sky. And so I was just like, oh, come on. Like, of all the things you need to show me, like, that's like one thing you gotta have in there, is like, in all the games, that's what you see, is like, you look up, you see the Halo, you can trace the ring all the way around from just looking at it. And it's like, that's bullshit, man. Like, I feel so cheated. Like, I felt cheated because I was like, did you just run out of budget so like you can't render it past the cloud line? Like, this is kind of dumb. Like, it was just dumb.
I think that's one of the things. Anytime you're, I'd have to look. Don't quote me, or anybody listening can point out that I'm wrong. But I think pretty much anytime you're on Halo and not indoors, you can see the entire ring.
You can, yeah.
And but yeah, it was just a very underwhelming moment. And they twice panned across it, like you could see the whole ring, even though it stops partway up into the clouds,
Mhm.
and then it just keeps panning like you can see it. And I just, yeah, I think this could have been just a really great moment, really good reveal. See the whole ring. The CGI wasn't terrible, and it was a minor little nitpick, but it would have been cool to get some of the. I should know this after all my years of Halo, but they've had it in, some of the Halo Infinite teasers and trailers and stuff. Is those energy beams that shoot to the sky?
Oh yeah, I
Again,
was
that
thinking
could have
about that
been
too.
that
Yeah.
could have been like Chef Kiss Good kind of. If they just added that little in there along with the full ring, but yeah, it was just really unfortunate. And yeah, I think they're hinting again. We've said it, we've called it, or I guess we haven't called it yet because it hasn't happened yet. But um, the probably love story between Maquis and Master Chief.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
cuz you
I,
could
I didn't
tell.
understand that 180. Like he's all but like aggressive to her when they're in the room together, and she's like they're I guess milking each other for information, right?
Gross.
And then that not wow, thanks. Um, and then they like I don't know orgasm at the touching of the artifact and show up together in the ring, and now all of a sudden they're just like, ah, yes, feelings for you.
Yeah,
Like what?
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know where this is going, but I guess we'll find out in the next couple of episodes.
hopefully. I don't. Well, I shouldn't say hopefully, but probably.
Yeah.
You should say hopeful.
And that's largely the episode. Like
Yeah,
that there wasn't a whole lot going on. This was definitely kind of like I guess they're trying to go for a pacing of like the sigh of relief sort of a thing after having like a heavy action episode, but I don't know. It just kind of came off as like there wasn't a whole lot going on. So I guess what do you guys think? Final reviews?
sure.
All
Yeah,
right. Matt, you want to go first? What did you think?
sure. Uh, it's sad I'm becoming this numb to it, but honestly, this wasn't the worst episode again because Quan wasn't in it, right? It's amazing how much her absence really kind of makes it easier to suffer through this. So I would probably say it's a 4 out of 10. So not quite as good as last episode and not quite as bad as previous ones. But I really did think the music from that kind of key moment of unveiling the Halo really hurt. Um, and yeah, and one thing too, I didn't touch on this, but this is kind of just another thing that's kind of this episode bugged me is just how often the Spartans are out of their armor and with their helmets off. It's just
Yeah.
I'm
It
over.
really it
I'm
really
over it.
kills the mythos of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
And it
Mhm.
over it.
makes Master Chief not feel even less like Master Chief. Is what it
Yeah.
really does. Like, yeah. All right, Heather, what do you thought? What do you think?
Well, I wish I would have gone first because I was gonna put it around a 3-4 area. I I enjoyed it because I've decided that this isn't Halo. This is cheesy sci-fi, and so there are a lot of moments where like it's you kind of scratch your head at it because it just logically doesn't track, or you're like, okay, but you know, apparently they don't know what a military is, or whatever. And so there was a lot of those moments there, but they had some cool moments if you just like, like I said, turn off the Halo brain and just be like, oh yeah, this pretty cool. So I'd say probably about a 4 for me on this one. I'm
Yeah.
kind of with Matt. It's not as bad as some of the other episodes, but it's not great. And like you said, there isn't a whole lot going on in it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah, I think where I'm going to probably land on this is a 5. It's just average. It's just an average episode of cheesy
yeah,
sci-fi. Like, again, like if this had more to do with Halo, of course it would get more points from me. Just like last episode got more points from me because it was probably the Halo-iest episode we have gotten so far. So that's where I'm going to land, is about a 5. It's just average. And I probably would have dropped it another point if Quan Ha would have been in it.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else that you guys would like to discuss before we wrap?
Gotta find that Goldilocks. Remember.
Find the Goldilocks.
I need to quick ask this. What is the rape doctor doing with
Oh, God.
Halsey? Like he just follows her everywhere and she's okay with it? Like what?
Yeah, it's just a loyal assistant, I guess. An assistant that's more loyal than the Master Chief.
Yeah, but
Dude needs to go.
But the other thing is like, why does she let that happen? Like, what does she need him for if she's got no lab? Right? Like, well, I mean, she's going to a special
I don't
lab.
know, maybe it's her boy toy. She ditched
Maybe-
Captain
yeah.
Keys to get a new boy toy.
There you go. Yeah, rape doctor. God.
Yikes, man.
He was really sad that Cortana broke his what was it, Fleetcom security or whatever, when she kind of made it back to chat with Halsey. God, that between him and Quan need to go.
Yeah.
No, I just don't get him either. But at least he is like barely in episodes. Like they tried to like feature him, it went over like a lead balloon, and now he's just kind of, yeah, this guy still exists.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the like weird little drama soap opera-y love story when he tries to like tell Halsey that he loves her, and then the fallout from there. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Oh, I guarantee you, she already knows.
God, it's awful.
All right. Well, I think that's probably where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you, dear listener, for joining with us on this fun little tirade on all the weird things that happened in the Halo TV series. Be sure to check out our regular episodes. We release new episodes weekly every Saturday. These episodes release on Thursday or Wednesday, just before the new episode of Halo airs. Yep. But yeah, check us out on Saturdays. We cover all sorts of crazy news and do some reviews here and there on our regular show for the Campfire Gaming Podcast. Of course, join us on Discord. You can find that link at campfiregamingpodcast.com. You can also find our Twitter, where Matt makes lots of cool posts about things, and that's at CampGamePod. We'd love to hear from you. If you're coming from YouTube, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Give us a comment and let us know if we're doing a good job, bad job, or if you want to hear some other things talked about, maybe other TV shows or movies. So with that said, we'll see you guys on Saturday and next week for the next episode of the Halo TV series. And of course, like always, we'll see you next time around the campfire.